You stand up from the couch. You have a purpose, a real, legitimate, adult purpose. Maybe it's your keys. Maybe it's a glass of water. Maybe it's the charger that you've already looked for twice today. Doesn't matter. You have a mission. You walk to the kitchen. Confident, determined. A man or woman on a mission. You arrive. You stop. And your brain goes, "Welcome. I have no idea why we're here. Good luck." You stand there, in the middle of the kitchen, like a sim whose player just canceled the action cue. You look around. You open a cabinet. You close it. You look at the fridge like it owes you an explanation. Nothing. So you walk back to the couch. You sit down. And the exact second you sit down, it hits you, the charger. It was the charger, so you stand up again. You walk back to the kitchen, you arrive. And your brain does it again. Gone. Deleted. You are now a person standing in a kitchen for the second consecutive time with absolutely no idea why. And here's where it gets interesting, because this is not a sign of aging. It's not early anything. It's not your phone rotting your attention span. And it's definitely not because you're dumb. Your brain did this on purpose, and it's been doing it for about 300,000 years. But here's the part nobody talks about. The door is not the problem. The door is just the trigger. The problem is much, much weirder than that. Scientists actually studied this. Like in a lab. With funding. Someone got grant money to figure out why you can't remember why you walked into the kitchen. Your tax dollars potentially at work. In 2006, a researcher named Gabriel Radvansky at the University of Notre Dame ran an experiment. He had people pick up objects from a table, put them in a box, walk to another table, and set them down. Simple task. Kindergarten-level difficulty. But here's the twist. Sometimes the second table was in the same room. And sometimes it was in a different room. Through a doorway. When the table was in the same room, people remembered the objects just fine. When they walked through a door to get to the other table, their memory of what they were carrying dropped significantly. Same task. Same objects. Same distance walked. The only variable was the door. They called it the doorway effect. And your first instinct is probably, okay, so doors are distracting. New room, new stuff to look at, brain gets sidetracked. Reasonable guess, completely wrong, because in 2011, Radvansky ran the experiment again, this time in a virtual environment. No real rooms, no real doors, no new furniture to look at, no smells, no temperature changes, just a person wearing a headset, walking a digital character through digital doorways. Same result. Memory dropped every time they crossed a virtual threshold, which means it has nothing to do with distraction, nothing to do with new sensory input, nothing to do with the physical room at all. Your brain isn't getting distracted by the kitchen, your brain is deleting files on purpose the moment you cross that door frame. The question is, why would it do that? Here's where it gets genuinely fascinating. Your brain doesn't experience life as one long, continuous stream of information. That would be insane. That would be like trying to watch every Netflix show simultaneously on one screen with no pause button. Instead, your brain breaks your day into chapters. Psychologists call them event models. An event model is basically your brain's way of saying, okay, here's the current situation. Here's what matters right now. Here are the goals, the objects, the people, and the context that are relevant to this specific chapter of your day. Sitting on the couch watching TV? That's one event model. Standing in the kitchen making coffee? Different event model. Driving to work? Another one. Your brain loads these like save files. One chapter at a time. And here's the critical part. When one chapter ends and a new one begins, the old save file gets archived, pushed to the background, harder to access. And guess what your brain uses as the signal that one chapter has ended and a new one has begun? Doorways. A physical threshold. You walk through a door and your brain goes, new room, new context, new chapter. Let me clear the workspace and load fresh priorities. The memory of why you came to the kitchen was part of the previous chapter. The couch chapter. And the moment you walked through that door, your brain archived it. It's like closing a browser tab. The information isn't destroyed, it's still somewhere in your history, but it's no longer in front of you. And good luck finding it without retracing your steps. Researcher Jeffrey Sachs at Washington University expanded on this in 2007 with what he calls event segmentation theory. His work showed that your brain is constantly scanning for boundaries, doorways, scene changes, shifts in activity, to decide when to close one chapter and open the next. It's running in the background all the time. You never notice it. Until you're standing in the kitchen wondering if you've developed amnesia at age 29. So why would the brain evolve to do this? Why build a system that actively deletes your goals every time you change locations? Because for most of human history, changing locations meant changing everything. Picture this. You're a human being 200,000 years ago. You're inside a cave. Your current priorities: stay warm, monitor the fire, keep an eye on the kids, maybe sharpen a tool. You step outside the cave. New environment, new threats, new priorities entirely. Now you need to scan for predators. You need to check the weather. You need to assess whether that rustling in the bushes is dinner or something that wants to make you dinner. The stuff you were thinking about inside the cave? Completely irrelevant out here. If your brain kept running the monitor the fire program while you were standing outside with a potential leopard situation developing at 2 o'clock, you'd be dead. So the brain evolved a system. When you cross a boundary between environments, flush the old priorities and load the new ones. Fast. Automatic. Non-negotiable. This was an incredibly useful feature when crossing a threshold meant the difference between relaxing by the fire and active predator territory. It is a significantly less useful feature when the threshold is the doorway between your living room and your kitchen, and the biggest threat in the new environment is a pile of dishes you've been avoiding for 3 days. But your brain doesn't know that. Your brain is running 300,000-year-old software in a 2025 apartment. As far as your limbic system is concerned, every doorway could be the mouth of a cave leading into open savanna. So it flushes the cache. Every time. Now, you've probably noticed something. When you walk back to the original room, sometimes the memory comes flooding back. You sit down on the couch and boom, the charger. This isn't magic. This is actually the same system working in reverse. Remember, the memory was archived, not deleted. It was filed under the previous event model, the couch chapter. When you walk back through the door and re-enter that environment, your brain reloads the old save file, and suddenly the information is accessible again. Psychologists call this context-dependent memory. The idea is simple. Memories are easier to recall when you're in the same context, physical location, emotional state, even body position, as when the memory was first formed. It's why you can't remember the answer during the exam, but it hits you in the parking lot. Different context, different chapter loaded. But here's the catch. It doesn't always work, because if too much time passes or if you've walked through several more doors and loaded several more chapters in between, the original save file gets buried deeper. More chapters stacked on top, harder to retrieve, which is why the walk back to the original room trick works great if you do it right away, and works terribly if you've already gone to the kitchen, the bathroom, checked your phone, opened the fridge, closed the fridge, opened it again hoping new food materialized, and then tried to remember. At that point, you've loaded like 6 new event models. That original chapter is buried under a pile of mental paperwork. Here's what makes this even more absurd. The average American walks through about 30 to 40 doorways per day. Home, office, bathroom, conference room, break room, back to the office, back to the bathroom, because apparently that's just where you live now. Each one of those is a potential memory wipe. A micro reset. A tiny invisible hand reaching into your brain and pulling out whatever thought you were holding. And it's not just physical doorways. Radvansky's virtual reality experiment proved that the trigger isn't the door itself. It's the perception of a boundary. Any signal that tells your brain you are now in a new context can fire the same effect, which means scrolling past a section break on a web page can do it. Switching from one app to another can do it. Clicking from your email to Slack to your browser and back to your email, that's 3 doorways in 4 seconds. Your brain just flushed the cache 3 times. And you're sitting there staring at your inbox going, what was I about to do? You weren't distracted. You weren't lazy. You weren't doom scrolling. You walked through 3 invisible doors and your brain did exactly what it's been doing for 300,000 years. It cleared the workspace. So, next time you're standing in the middle of your kitchen with absolutely no idea why you're there, staring at the fridge like it's a magic 8-ball that might give you answers, relax. You're not losing your mind. You're not getting old. You're not broken. You're a 300,000-year-old operating system running in a world full of doors it doesn't understand. Your ancestors needed this system to survive. You need it to forget why you walked into the kitchen. Evolution doesn't do refunds. And by the way, you came in here for the charger. If your brain just spent the last 8 minutes not deleting this video, do the reasonable thing and hit subscribe. We make videos about why your brain does weird stuff that nobody asked it to do. And drop a comment. What's the worst thing your brain has deleted on you mid-doorway?